Welcome to this episode of the Standing Ovation.
So when you think about what CIOs are constantly challenged with, CIOs essentially and IT organizations are cost centers at the end of the day, right? They spend money to get stuff done. And typically, usually, they don't get credit for the revenue benefit. That's the business's charter. So when CIOs look at a macro environment, which is at best unknown for 2023, it drives certain challenges that have existed in the past. So at its core, when you think about what a CIO is trying to do, especially in potentially tough times, you could kind of summarize it as by saying you have to do more with less, which is a very standard approach in a business unit, in an enterprise. So do more with less, figure it out is often how it's portrayed. And really what it implies or really results in is how do you spend more prudently? In order to do more with less, there are two components, two collections of not collections, but two sets of priorities and initiatives that have to be balanced. One are these IT imperatives. There is tech debt that always has to be addressed. There are compliance initiatives and security initiatives and legacy system betterments and maintenance that just has to get done in order to keep the lights on. But one has to balance all of that with the business objectives. So the business, typically in order to at least maintain status quo, if not likely and usually grow, because the business doesn't care that the macro environment might be challenging. So the business has their own growth objectives. So the IT leader needs to look at both the things I have to do within technology, within IT. How do I do that while also achieving the business objectives, which equals growth? And then how do I do all that, do more with less? So that's really the core challenge. And so in short, what they have to do is they have to really balance both short-term objectives and long-term objectives. And usually what happens is the long-term objectives are the ones that take a hit, because the imperatives, the business objectives, are 6, 12-month, quarter by quarter, 2023 in this case objectives. And so those are relatively short to medium term. So therefore, how do I invest as an IT leader? How do I invest in something that might not pay dividends for 2 to 3 years because of the time it will take, the budget it will take, the resources it will take to actually get this done? And so typically what will fall by the wayside are these longer term objectives, longer term business benefits or IT technology benefits. So you have to balance short and long term, and typically it's the long term that falls by the wayside. So in other words, how does one move the business forward? We call that discretionary spend, because those are things that you don't have to invest in, but you should invest in, or you could say need to invest in order to achieve the business objectives. So how do you move the business forward discretionarily, while also moving or addressing tech debt and non-discretionary initiatives, things you have to spend money on in order to keep the lights on, just day-to-day operations. And how do you, and by the way, punchline again, how do you spend less money doing all of this? And that really is the challenge in an uncertain time, an uncertain economic time. IT, at the end of the day, is an expense line item. They don't have a revenue line item. And so how do you minimize expense while best enabling the revenue side, which is the business? And that's really the core challenge of a time like this for leadership within IT. The business doesn't exist in order for an IT organization to do their thing. The IT organization exists for the business to do their thing, to achieve their goals. And so if one doesn't properly, adequately invest in this discretionary spend, then all you're doing is again, driving expense into an IT organization. The business will falter at best, fail at worst, not achieve their goals, because ultimately the entire organization within a business unit, within an enterprise, within a company exists to grow, exists to satisfy users' needs, exists to satisfy customers' needs. That's the whole point. The point is not to build neat cool IT technology stuff. That's not why any of these organizations exist. They exist because the business has needs. And so ultimately the key is to find, and if one doesn't find a way to get the vast majority of the business benefits with value done within reasonable timeframes, time, scope, money, quality, then all you've done is spent money as an IT leader. All you've done is invest in what one could say are technology investments that frankly had no value to the business growth. They keep the lights on, which is also very important. By the way, it's not discretionary. You don't have a choice. But if you don't invest in the business, then why are we here? And that's really the biggest challenge that we have. In a time like this, you have to be creative in how you help the business succeed while also achieving your lights on demands and capabilities. The business benefit more and more is coming from the user experience innovation. And so the business is rethinking, what is the user interface? What do users see? Not just on a screen, but via emails and texts and phones and everything else. So what is the user interface and how can I make that better? But more specifically, the user experience. How do I make it look like my old legacy systems are new and innovative and cutting edge? How do I do that? And that's what businesses are telling us. And the challenge is with legacy systems that aren't architected, designed to do that, to be flexible in this context. That's the struggle. And so most legacy systems just aren't optimized for, or they are optimized for data retention and speed, but they're not optimized for adapting to multiple user interactions and flexibilities so that a business can now change how systems interact with their user community, both internal and external. And so that requires, and also businesses often have a large collection of internal systems or platforms. Businesses often have or require interaction with external, other company and other enterprise systems, platforms, data stores, etc. And so to provide a proper user experience, one actually has to integrate disparate sets of data, internal, external, in near real time, such that you can provide data consolidated that's in the right context to the right user, the right person, the right place at the right time, and do so proactively. So you preempt, you're able to understand when will this data be necessary based on or required based on where the user is, what they're trying to accomplish. And those are the kinds of challenges that legacy systems and platforms today just aren't designed to do. And so when one thinks about in 2023 and what we're hearing from our customers is that UX, user experience, is becoming more and more critical. And how do I bring together all of these disparate platforms, all of these disparate data stores, many of which I don't control because we outsourced a lot of our work, a lot of our systems, a lot of our data to external entities, external enterprises. How do I bring that all together such that I can deliver the user experience that my legacy platforms today just aren't really designed to accommodate? An IT person, an IT leader should really look at, well, what do I have in my quiver? Which platforms do I have today? And as I mentioned before, the majority of platforms are meant for processing and I'll say data retention in general. That's a generalized statement, but it's generally true. What they're not meant to do, or what they weren't optimized to do or architected to do, is provide a flexible user experience to flexibly interact with other internal and external platforms, to disseminate data, to integrate data, to consolidate data in a way that in a no code or very low code environment, I can change the user experience based on what the business, as the business adapts and what the business needs over time. Internal platforms just aren't designed or optimized to do that. And so when one looks at the buy versus build question, so the business says, I need a better user experience. Wonderful. I can now change the plethora of internal platforms that I have to make them good at flexible user experience. by the way, I now have to go to my external partners to tell and ask or tell them to do exactly the same things. Now I need to build an interface that brings all of this together and really combines the user experience, the user interface, an aspect of workflow management, and an aspect of data delivery. One could say a little bit of AI to predict which user's data will need to be delivered to whom and when. I can build all of that, or I can focus my attention, the build component of where I invest my money. I can focus my attention on the enhancing my internal platforms to, additionally satisfy other business objectives and needs. I can focus my internal attention on satisfying my non-discretionary tech spend, security, compliance, et cetera. There's scale, optimization, et cetera. I can spend my money there and perhaps buy what I like to say is, and I mean this not in a joking way, write a check to solve a problem. Because an IT leader has a million problems that they're dealing with at any point in time. And sometimes it's best to just write a check, spend some money, buy a solution out of the box. Because when you buy a solution, it's essentially a ready-made solution. What you get is a solution that works, a solution that integrates for you, a solution that very quickly solves the vast majority of the problems that you're being asked to solve. And you're also not creating more tech debt for yourself because you're not building it. Someone else owns the code. And you're also not creating another maintenance nightmare, because the more code you build and write, the more code you have to support, which means people and money. And so you're spread even more thin. And in a time when there's economic uncertainty and you're being asked to do less with more, when you can write a check to solve a significant problem to quickly drive forward one of the core business objectives, in this case, CXM or user experience management, then what you've done is you're essentially a hero because you can focus on the stuff that you have to do, and you can write a check to solve the things that will drive huge benefit for the business, and you've not actually increased your tech debt because, frankly, someone else owns it, and someone else owns the ongoing maintenance. And in that way, you do more with less. And that's really, I think, going to be critical on the point of in times like this in 2023, how do you just solve more with less? And I think by buying a platform, buying a solution that solves this core business problem, it allows you to focus fewer resources on things you actually have to focus on.